And we're talking Silence of the Lambs, directed by Jonathan Demme from 1991, our number 13 spine in the Criterion Creep.
Mm-hmm.
Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, is pulled from FBI training by the head of the Bureau's Behavioral Science Unit, Jack Crawford, played by Scott Glenn. He assigns her to interview the infamous cannibal doctor Hannibal Lecter. Basically, it's all a ruse just to get Lecter's assistance in gaining insight into the recent killings of one Buffalo Bill, a serial killer kidnapping and dumping women in rivers. Mind games ensue between the young Starling and Lecter, who's played by Anthony Hopkins, as you might have heard. As Lecter becomes interested in Starling and begins to help her in a way movie maniacs do by sending her on wild goose chases that aren't exactly that, while being frustratingly coy and pumping her for information about her own life and for his own enjoyment, leading to that whole business of Silence of Lambs. We then get introduced to the inimitable Buffalo Bill, the yet-to-be-identified James Gumb, played by Ted Levine, whose latest victim is the daughter of a U.S. senator, and we get to enjoy his modus operandi and his day-to-day life involving a poodle, lotion, a bucket, a well, moths, and his love for great big fat persons.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go too much into this movie. I think everyone has seen it. Deals are made, deals are broken. Lecter is smarter than everyone else. He escapes. Starling gets to prove her worth. There's nipple piercings, some sweet music, a sweet score, night vision goggles, vans. There's red herrings, guys' faces getting ripped off, ambulance rides, and threats of future cannibalism bring this bad boy home.
Hoim. Hoim.
So the movie is based on the Thomas Harris novel of the same name that was published in 1988. The novel was a sequel to Thomas Harris's 1981 novel, Red Dragon, which was adapted into Michael Mann's Manhunter. Do you know why they renamed the movie to Manhunter?
Probably because of the Red Dragon triad.
Because I guess like Dino De Laurentiis thought Red Dragon made it sound like a kung fu movie.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe at a point, but I guess his instincts were shit in any case because Manhunter was a bomb. Like it did really bad. But I mean that's like kind of been the story of Michael Mann's life. It seems like he is like either super hits, mild hits, or like his movies just don't do well at all. Like Black Hat, which is actually pretty good, people. So Silence of the Lambs was directed by a Roger Corman underling, Jonathan Demme, who cut his teeth with Corman movies like Caged Heat and something called Crazy Mama. He made the movie, which is a future Criterion Creep, called Something Wild in 1986.
Ooh.
He directed a Spalding Gray monologue film, Swimming to Cambodia, and a lot of music video work, as well as the movie Married to the Mob. It was written by a fairly unestablished screenwriter at the time, Ted Talley, who sounded like he just kind of looked into the situation. Gene Hackman was originally part of the acquisition of the book, Silence of the Lambs. And so he like put it up like half the money to buy the rights for it with Orion, and like he wanted to direct it and star in it, which I don't know if that means he was actually going to play Hannibal Lecter, but I guess he like lost interest in it because he kind of like thought the movie was just going to be like too grotesque, and I guess he had just like played like an unlikable character in like the movie Mississippi Burning the previous year, and he thought he might like hurt his brand, so he was like nah, so he just like kind of dropped out of this. So I'm not sure if he got his money back or not. But yeah, I just like imagining. I don't know if Gene Hackman's directed like much. Like nothing comes to mind off the top of my head. But yeah, that would have been a very different movie.
Right.
First choice for Jonathan Demme's first choice for Clarice Starling was Michelle Pfeiffer. Because I guess like cause they'd worked together on Married to the Mob, but I guess she backed out of it because she thought it was like a gross, risky movie. But my favorite little bit of trivia, RJ, was that the first actor offered the role of Hannibal Lecter, Sean Connery.
Oh my god!
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so just to reiterate to people out there, I think Sean Connery is a fucking horrible actor. He sucks, and it's like, oh man, we wouldn't be talking about this movie, I don't think, if Sean Connery had decided this movie wasn't grotesque.
I think it would have went the way of Manhunter and just failed. Hey.
Well, we'll talk about Manhunter, and
I do like Sean Connery though. I don't I'm not in the same camp as you
No,
that he sucks. So.
I don't. I'm not sure my Sean Connery hate camp's very big, but
Hmm.
I don't know. He's got a bad streak for me. So Silence of the Lambs, it came out kind of like during the prime serial killer era, like early
Hmm.
'90s. It's kind of like if you think about like these serial killer movies, it's like Silence of the Lambs and Seven basically went on to like inspire everything, and
Hmm.
like kind of why people kind of like roll their eyes about this stuff. So because like I mean, so in the '80s you had sort of your like your merging of like kind of like the slasher with I guess these like 1980s directors who kind of like grew up loving film noir, and they sort of like a Brian De Palma kind of started merging these interests into like the something called like the erotic noir movies and like
Ooh.
erotic thrillers, like kind
Yeah.
of like your body heats, your body doubles, dress to kill and stuff like that.
Sister Act 2.
Yeah, Sister Act 2. Um, and like so, like Joe Esterhaus, who made like Jagged Edge in like the '80s, and then he'd go on to also write Basic Instinct, which was like your other
Hmm.
big '90s thriller movie.
Hmm.
Just like right after this, your Single White Females, which aren't like serial killer movies, but they're like these like the adult thrillers that like
Hmm.
started like just coming out nonstop because movies like this were just making so much money. And just like to go along with that like serial killer thing, I mean, you had people kind of primed to know what serial killers were now because like throughout the 80s, like you had like your Jeffrey Dahmers, your Richard Ramirez's, your Ted Bundys, your Gacy's, your like you had all these like figures that were like in the news constantly. And I
Right.
mean, like Hannibal Lecter is sort of like a composite of like a few of those. Is like the so
Hmm.
people like hit on these things, and yeah, and then it's like on top of that, it's like a technically really well made movie. So like this movie became like a super phenomenon. It's like so what it won the big five Oscar awards, which are Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Screenplay, and Best Picture.
Ooh.
Only two other movies in history so far have done that, and that's in happened. It happened one night, which is a future creep,
Mm.
and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So it's like really unusual.
Uh,
Clark Gable, Jack Nicholson. It's a weird company with old Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal Lecter.
hmm.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, if you think about like all these movies that have won Oscars up to that point, Silence of the Lambs is essentially like a B horror movie. Like if you
Hmm.
look at what its story is, and for it to like win Best Picture, really speaks to like how much like power it had like in people's minds, like even in like Academy Award voters who like would never even probably bother going to see something like this, but this movie just like became so much bigger than what anyone could have thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
So I'll just say up to this point that I fucking love this movie a
Hmm.
lot. The first time I ever watched this movie was actually on the local 2 and 7 channel here, which so that was like just like the local channel, and it for somehow they had acquired the rights to play it like at 11 o'clock at night, and I
Hmm.
just like it was like a summer night, probably in like '96 or something like that, '97, and I stayed up and I watched this movie for the first time in my parents' basement, and this movie was just utterly terrifying, and like it seemed like this like unending ordeal of just like
Hmm.
dankness, and like it had such a mastery of tone that like I'd never seen anything quite like it at that point.
Right.
um and yeah, this movie scared the shit out of me, and I've loved it ever since. But my interpretation and feelings about this movie have changed from being thinking it's like this really frightening, scary movie to being like really like funny, which
Hmm.
I kind of mentioned last week. But I guess we'll talk about that more as we get into it. But RJ, do you have any thoughts or feelings about this movie we're talking about today?
Uh, I mean, not anything revolutionary. Like this movie's awesome. I love it too. I also saw it as a little kid. I also had a skin suit when I was a little kid. It's all good things. Like I don't know, man. There's a lot of individual elements I really like, but it's like you said. I think I think people know this movie's fucking great. Like there's some like technical stuff that I really like about this movie is it's really like intimate. Like there's so many close-ups.
Oh
There's so
yeah.
many goddamn close-ups in
That's
this movie.
that's like one of my first notes when I started watching this again.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like just like that. Yeah, I don't know if like I had never picked up on it. Like obviously the first time I watched it, and it wasn't until I rewatched this movie the first time in a long time earlier this year,
Hmm.
back in March. So I hadn't seen it for years, and like I was really struck by like the whole use of like I guess the term for it is the gaze in this, because like I didn't realize how often like characters are just staring directly into the camera pretty much, and
Yeah.
like everyone's just looking directly at one another. Like it's shot directly across from one. Like everyone's just like it's constantly being shot when they're back and forth conversations.
Hmm.
Like obviously it breaks away from that at times, but there it happens constantly. And like in those opening shots of the movie, like these like close-ups on like Dr. Chilton when he's just
Hmm.
like really relishing and telling Starling about the nurse being just
Hmm.
like just disfigured by the lecture attack,
Yeah.
and it's just like good God, like it's like so many close-ups, and it's just like
Hmm.
so close, and it's like really well done in like not, but it's like it adds to that discomfort, the
Yep.
intensity that you're supposed to be feeling,
Hmm.
um and you're not just kind of like chuckling at the fact that like, oh, Dr. Chilton just happens to have this photo of this nurse's face in his pocket. Or he's just like he just
Yeah.
shows up to people.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fucking great. Like stuff like that I think is really really good, and I don't know, it just highlights a lot of like the good parts of this movie, like cuz you'll go from like close-ups with like everybody's faces, like when Clarice and Hannibal are talking, it's like close up, back and forth, and then you'll go to like the wide shot of Clarice. Like that's another thing that's really good in this movie, is showing like a woman in a man's world kind of thing.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
guess like is a big theme of this movie, where it's like everything she, like wherever she goes there's like people hitting on her, or like undermining like women. They're like, Let's go talk about this somewhere else." So like you'll go from like the close-ups where it's like her and like Hannibal, and then you'll go to the wide shot of her like in the elevator with like a bunch of dudes, or like in the when they go find that body and it's like all the state cops in there, and it's just like her and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I find like that mix where it goes from close to like wide, when it's like that stuff, is just really well done.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
it's so effortless too, because like
yeah,
and
exactly.
until you start like really, I don't know, like I said, when I first watched that I was completely unaware of that dynamic of the movie, I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, because it's like because Jodie Foster is a pretty diminutive physical person. Like she's not large. She's like
Yeah.
pretty like small. And then like you have guys like Scott Glenn. He's a big guy. Like he's
Hmm.
like he doesn't like you don't really get the sense that this guy's like actually like in really good shape. Like
Hmm.
you would if you watch like his action movies that like came out before this. Because in this he's got the slick back, gray hair, glasses, suits and stuff like that. Like he just looks like a stooge. But I
Hmm.
mean, he's like kind of like he's really well cast in this
Right.
as Jack Crawford, which is like, I mean, we'll kind of talk about like the other Harris adaptations that
Hmm.
we've all watched, but yeah, I mean, I think he's like probably one of the better versions because he doesn't like bring a lot of attention upon himself. He's like just like
Right.
he's very much like it's because it's really the Starling story and her
Hmm.
relationship with Lecter, and like kind of, and then there's like the B story of like Buffalo Bill and
Yeah.
like what he's up to. Yeah, so I guess like one thing I'll throw out there is like when I first started watching this movie again, like the one thing that really struck me was like the opening credits of this movie, like it
Hmm.
has sort of like a made for television look. Did you get that at all?
Yeah, because the credits are over like the opening scene, like the whole intro, right?
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
just opens up and it's like that weird font too that I just like
Hmm.
for some reason I associate that with like made for television movies, and like just like lots of like kind of like that leafy kind of fall feeling because it's all
Yeah.
at the is it Quantico, the
Hmm.
Cornica, whatever the name of the,
Quantico.
yeah, and it's just like the training sequence and them running, and it's like and the James Horner music kind of just like playing like,
Hmm.
and it's like at that point it's like pretty like the uninspired part of that score.
Hmm.
And it's just like here's the information, and it's like it just feels like it could be like, yeah, this is like a television movie. So it's like in some ways this movie's like perfect to be watched on TV because it's going to lull you in because you don't
Hmm.
realize the directions it's going to go and the sights you're going to be shown.
Right.
Because like yeah, you go from that scene to her being brought into Crawford's office, and then like you get her like looking over at like the billboards or the
Yeah.
bulletin boards, and you just see like Bill Skins fifth, and it's just like Skins what? And
Yeah. You know what I think is really funny, just to interrupt you for a second, is like when she's walking to his office, she like sees one cop, she's like, "Where's Crawford?" And like he points her, or like he tells her where. There's like a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard, really big at the top, it just says Skins. and then it's like underlined like 4 times, and then there's like a bunch of other stuff on the board, and I find that's really funny for some reason, that it's like someone wrote it like really big on a whiteboard, like
Yeah.
skin.
Well,
I don't know.
maybe they're like big fans of potato skins.
Or like the Redskins.
Yeah.
Like they're close to DC, so
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Oh no, that's just it. Like I just like so the one thing that the movie kind of starts setting up is just like they start using like the kind of the crime scene photography in the movie
Hmm.
to like kind of like they don't like it's not overtly horrific, I guess, for
Yeah.
the most part. Like there is obviously like these like gruesome scenes in the movie, but like there's like all the body stuff. Like you don't actually see Buffalo Bill kill anybody in the
No.
movie. It's always like after the fact, and like you
Hmm.
see him ramping up, and you kind of get the sense of like what's going to happen to Catherine when he's ready to kill her.
Hmm.
But you see, like I love those photographs because those photographs to me are so much more suggestive
Hmm.
of like of horror and like these women's like last moments before he killed them,
Hmm.
and it's just like yeah, it's way more effective doing that than like scenes of him it
Hmm.
working. Like that's like the problem with stuff like I'm sure you haven't watched them, but like August Underground films, which are
No.
just like they're like simulating snuff movies, and it's
Ugh.
yeah, it's they're junk, and it's like because they don't really like it's like they're intense experiences, but they're like super so unenjoyable. It's like well, who watches this stuff?
Right.
Like who's the audience for? And it's so such a narrow audience that sort of thing is for. Whereas like
Hmm.
this is like the opposite end of that spectrum. Like it's almost like silly to compare them, but like that's like what I like about it. It's like it just it puts it in your mind, and like
It's
you
what.
can't help but to relate to it because obviously like it's not like people aren't murdered in real life. Like that's something that like we know happens, and our experience with it generally is through these like photographs. And then there's like entire like websites that exist, like truecrimereport.com or something like that. And
Hmm.
like people used to go to like websites like rotten.com, and like these were like links were like real crime scene photographs, and like
Hmm.
the age of people would have looked at this stuff, and you'd see it, and it's like, oh god, because you just look at it
Yeah.
and you put the pieces together.
Hmm.
That's just like one of the damning things about human imagination is our ability to see something, and we just start constructing the rest of the story, even if we don't want
Exactly.
to. Yeah,
It's what you don't see that's scary, right, Jarrett?
that's right.
That's what Stevie King would say.
Yeah.
But actually, I was gonna say the point you just made, like all these old like tabloid magazines, like I think that gets shown really well in a Manhunter with what's Freddie Niles, or what's it like, the
Lowndes?
report Freddie Lowndes,
Yeah,
yeah, the reporter
the
and stuff
National
like that.
Tattler.
Yeah, or as we all know him affectionately now, is the guy from Don't Breathe who gets the baster. Uh, Whatever his name is, I don't
Steve
even know.
Lang.
Steve Lang, yeah. But anyways, my point is like I think Manhunter shows that really well. And like when they talk about how after Will Graham gets like cut up, he like snuck in and like took pictures of like the injuries and like published them on the Tatler magazine or whatever. It's good.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying it supports what you're saying.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all.
for sure. Hey, RJ, have you ever told a woman you could smell her cunt?
I myself can have
Oh,
not, but I will use that in a singles bar one
yeah.
day, maybe.
Yeah. If Andrea gets her way, I guess.
Well, we do have the role playing Wednesdays, so we have constructed a glass cage,
Mhm.
and we will be reenacting that scene, I believe. But she'll be Hannibal, and I'll be Clarice because that's how we always do it.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fine. Well, have you ever flung semen at a woman?
Only a couple times, but it wasn't as well received as
Oh,
in this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I will always remember good old multiple MIGs.
Can I? So since you bring it up, like this was like another one of those movies that you just said like I saw when I was a little kid because it was on TV all the time,
Yeah.
and that scene always grossed me out so much. Like I don't know what it is. I feel like it's so like violating. Like, and I get like that's the point,
Yeah.
but like it always upset me
It's a
so
little
much. It's like
violating, RJ.
yeah, like no, like I know. It's
I-
just it. I was always like, oh man, that's gross. It's like I wish that
yeah.
wasn't in here.
I think like when I was a kid, I didn't really like, I didn't know what he was saying.
Yeah.
But and then yeah, and I didn't know what he threw at her. Like I didn't pick up on any
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but then there came the point, and then it's always the it's more the questioning that Lecter gives, where it's like, Miggs, multiple Miggs in the cell next door. What did he say to you? Just let Jodie Foster having to drawl out, "There, you can smell my cunt." and,
Yeah.
and then just like, then his goddamn Anthony Hopkins goes, "Ah, I see." And
He's
then
like,
he smells the air. "Ah, I, however, cannot." And like, I don't know how you cannot think that that is just like, it's kind of hilarious now.
There actually, after you said it last week, when you're like, it's secretly a comedy, there was a lot of stuff in this movie that's just really funny.
It's black. Like, it's a black
Yeah.
comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a ton of like really funny things in this movie. Like, I don't know. I'll get to some of that
Yeah.
stuff, but
Well, so my next question, RJ, have you ever pretended to be handicapped moving a large chair into the back of a van to lure women into said van to knock them unconscious and then bring them back to your dungeon?
they weren't coming back to the dungeon. But so like 2 out of 3, yeah.
Okay, not bad. Yeah, no, that's the other, like, 'cause I mean, that's like a total Ted Bundy move, because
Oh, yeah.
that was this whole thing with his like little powder blue Volkswagens, was like he'd had the seat removed, he had the fake cast and stuff. So that's that attention to detail I really appreciate, being kind of a serial killer aficionado.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's just like that whole thing in his goddamn voice that he has. The, "Hey, are you about a size 14?" And
It's
just
awesome.
it's terrifying though. And then plus on top of that, her cat didn't get fed that night.
That's true, but I believe that since she was a such a high priority lady, that someone did.
Yeah.
The next day when she went missing, someone went and took care or helped that cat out.
Mm-hmm.
That was one note I had. There's a lot of good kitty action in here.
Yes.
And there is actually a detective cat.
Yes,
And,
he helps solve the
yeah,
case.
he solves the case.
Yeah.
Like, because she's like there, she's like, she finds these like really weird pictures and then just leaves them out, which I thought was really weird, because it's like, man, her dad is gonna find that. That's gross.
Yeah.
But then the cat was like, hey, come over here. I got some hot clues for you. So yeah, detective cat.
That other cat. The next thing I had written down here was the that body autopsy scene. That is like, I marvel at that, because I really don't know how they did it, because I'm like, is that a woman's, like, is that an actress that's actually like getting to lay there prostheticized up, or is that just like a fake body? Because you never really get that long of a look at it intentionally. Because you just like kind of get the descriptions of like describing a human body as like just this like piece of evidence, and you get the whatever it is, the shit under your nose thing to mask the smell, which I think could be used at things like common conventions and wrestling shows.
Absolutely. That and masks. Like, that was one thing I was watching. I was like, these people should be wearing masks for sure.
Yeah.
Like, Clarice is like just open face, like right near this like dead lady's body. She's like, like so close, touching skin. Oh, you know what? One thing I had for the autopsy scene. Did you recognize Bob the Goon from Tim Burton's '89 Batman as the autopsy guy?
Oh no, I didn't put that together.
It was Bob, Jack Nicholson's #1 guy.
Ah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. There was also another guy I recognized. The cop, when Hannibal gets moved to like that, I don't know, like a museum.
Yes,
cell.
yeah.
The one cop who's like gets a lot of screen time. Like, he comes and like finds Hannibal on the, or like the supposed Pembrey cop with his face all cut up.
Yeah.
He goes in and finds him, and he's got like a really distinctive gap tooth. I was like, hey, that's the guy from that Seinfeld episode where he has like spinach in his teeth all the time and he's got really bad breath. So that's all I gotta say about that.
No, there's there's another one of the security guys that's in there. Oh, I'm totally blanking out on what his name is. It's like, I want to say it's not Charles Napier, but
It might be.
no, I think that's is that the guy who plays Alfred?
Isn't Jack Napier what Joker's name is in '89 Batman?
Oh, I'm having a difficult time here finding.
Well, you're
my
ruining the
information.
podcast.
I'm sorry. You just sprung this on me. I wasn't expecting to talk about it.
I can talk about some things I like while you look this up.
Okay.
So this version of Chilton, like in all the adaptations, Chilton's particularly greasy, but I found this one was the absolute most garish. There's when the helicopter lands, he's like walking and he's got like a fur scarf with like gold trim and stuff, and it's just like Oh man, it's great. I love that.
It is Charles Napier.
As to Bob?
No.
Oh, the one of the cops. Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. 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 Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um,
Continue.
you know what's really funny? When Hannibal's in like that museum cell,
Yeah.
he has a picture that he drew of Clarice, and she's
Yeah.
holding a little lamb.
Oh yeah.
I find that super funny. And then also when the guard moves the paintings or the pictures underneath, there's a Bon Appetit magazine. I find that also really funny that Hannibal would be like a subscriber of like fine cuisine magazines and stuff like that, which gets makes sense, especially when you watch the Hannibal TV show. He's kind of a foodie, isn't he?
And the first like 8 minutes of the Red Dragon by Brett Ratner.
Right, right, exactly. You know what's one thing I thought was really funny? Talking about our how we're also a Simpsons podcast. When the cops have that sting to go to Jamie Gum's house, and the guy brings out the flowers in like the most conspicuous van ever. It's like in The Simpsons when Marge looks out the window and there's that truck and it's like flowers by Irene. And it's that was all I could think of when I saw that.
Yeah.
That was funny. It's like that's really obvious, you guys. I don't know.
I'll have to throw out there. I also enjoy Anthony Hopkins' reading of "Did the rancher make you perform fellatio? Did he sodomize you?"
Yeah, I find that stuff all really gross. Not because like the dialogue is gross, but because it's like, oh, Anthony Hopkins.
He's such a ham. Like that's like he's pretty hammy in this movie. Like I see some people have problems with that though. Like that's a complaint. I don't have a complaint with that. I think it's like
Oh.
it's good.
I think he's. I never thought it was bad. I always just thought it was gross.
Yeah. Well, what I like about him too is he has a real like. I think they've had a pretty good string of casting with like between Nicholson too. It's just like the physicality of these guys playing Lecter because like some people might go like an obvious route where he's like really thin and unassuming, but he's really fast. And like he's just strong, and just because they have to make him strong, but like they actually come off as like they would be physically very very strong.
Yeah.
Because they're stout and like just look like regular guys, not like idealized serial killers.
Well, that's why they got Brian Cox because he's the definition of a man.
Yeah.
Fucking right.
Yeah. And then Roger Corman doing a cameo here in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah. That was nice of him.
He was the moth that they pulled out of the throat, right?
Yes. Would you fuck James Gumb?
It's hard to say. Maybe if I saw him at like a bar and that song was playing, "Goodbye Horses."
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd like to prefer not to disclose at this time.
Okay. And how awesome is "Goodbye Horses" by Q Lazarus?
It's one of the best songs I've ever heard.
Yep.
This morning I played it while me and my girlfriend made French toast.
As you do.
Yeah.
Where's your penis tucked between your legs? As you
Again,
made
I would
breakfast?
prefer not. I would prefer not to disclose. There are some things that are intimate between a man and his woman.
Not even for the Criterion Creeps podcast.
Not right now.
Yeah, watching that scene again, that much talked about scene. I really love his awkward, ashamed tuck of his penis behind his legs because he just kind of he dips down and does it, and you're like, what is he doing? And then then you get to see it all.
Yeah, it's great. Ted Levine is so good in this movie.
Oh,
Like,
Ted Levine, yeah,
when he's dancing, I really like when the lady's down in the well and she's like screaming, and then he's like, "Oh!" He like really awkwardly like screams back at her, like he's like he just doesn't understand it. Oh, it's awesome.
No, I don't know how I don't know. Again, it's like anything he does, like all the shit he says in that movie, it's just like so funny.
It's all really funny, but I think it's wicked too.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
Yeah, it's like it's a loving laughter. It's not like, oh, this is so cheap or stupid. It's like no, it's like because it's like the first time you watch it, it's terrifying and it's scary. But like as you watch it, you get an appreciation for like this sort of like the dark humor in like these performances in the writing because it's just like it's so otherworldly. Like it's hard to relate to it, and that's like kind of like where like the B movie comment I made like about this comes up. It's like because this movie's like it's grounded in this reality, like it looks realistic, I guess. Like it seems like this is how it's really like being an FBI agent and profiler, but it's like it's so like this isn't how serial killers operate. Like the serial killers are like really boring, sad pieces of shit that like do horrible things. They're like, but this seems like almost like borders on like exciting because it's a movie at the end of the day, and that's kind of why I like this movie because it's like, I mean,
Because you can relate.
because I can relate to the serial killer experience. No,
Yeah.
it's like this movie, like again, another thing where I'm watching this movie and like I'm kind of forgetting like where certain scenes end or like where in the runtime it happens. Cause it's like, holy crap, this movie's almost done. And it's like, wait, he's already meeting the U.S. Senator and talking about, breastfeeding, and it's like, I can't believe this happened so late. And oh, now this is happening. I'm like, wait, it feels like there's other stuff that should have happened already, but like it's already, nope, they're already past that point.
Right. That was one thing I was going to mention. Like watching this movie, like I didn't really even take that many notes. Like there was a period for like half an hour. I realized I was like, I was like, I stopped taking notes, and it wasn't because like I didn't notice anything. It was just I was just enjoying the movie. I was totally it pulled me in, Jer.
Yeah.
And I was out. It took me out of my critical thinking mind.
Yeah.
Writing down jokes and things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like the best thing Jodie Foster's ever done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, other than what's that movie, The Accused, or you know, the pinball one?
Her getting raped on a pinball machine.
Yeah, that one was pretty
See,
good
I've
too.
never actually seen that movie, but I have seen the episode of South Park.
Well, I did see that movie when I was a little kid again.
Oh,
I watched
what?
a lot of movies I shouldn't have watched when I was little,
man.
just because I was like unmitigated like
The
access to
Accused.
TVs during weekends when like the older kids in the family were like out, and the parents like were like, well, whatever. It's like, go watch your stories. So I was like, yeah, and then you wind up watching The Accused when you're like an 11-year-old boy.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
That's what happens, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
good times.
Yeah, I think my Letterbox review right now just stands as I really wish I could get a hold of James Gumm's record collection.
Oh yeah.
He's got some sweet sounds. Because there's like the one, I think it's like Mark Colin Newman or something like that. There's like the one, there's like the other song that you don't get to hear as much, or it's not as iconic, I guess, as the Q Lazarus. But yeah, Colin Newman, a song called Alone. And I tracked that down on YouTube. And yeah, it's really good too. Listen to that, because yeah, that's what I do. But yeah, like, and then like, yeah, the Howard Shore score is so great. Because like whenever I think about this movie, I guess like the one shot that comes to mind is when he's tied up like Charles Napier to the cage of the electric cage in the hall, and the music just springs up, and it's like, yeah, it's like an opera, and like the music just hits, and of course it's like, I just watched The Fly like the other week, which is also Howard Shore, and also like super operatic score. And I mean, there's also like The Fly opera. And yeah, no, the music in this movie, like as soon as I'm watching it, it's just like, oh yeah, no, it's like a perfect score that completely suits everything about this.
Right.
It's like, it's just a little bit over the top, but in a really great way.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking when you said, is this Jodie Foster's best performance? I would say yes, but I just remembered probably Maverick is pretty close. She's wicked in Maverick too.
Yeah.
Just to get my one Mel Gibson mention in. We got to get one a show.
Yeah.
But anyways, hey, what's up with Jodie Foster's voice? Why does she talk like that?
In the movie?
In every movie. She's got a really weird like cadence, or like I don't know what it is. Like I find her accents really like bizarre.
Well, I'm trying to think of her because she's in Taxi Driver, and like she's just kind of a kid. Like it's just her voice, right? And then like in this movie, she's got like she's doing like the West
Virginia
drawl. She's covering up the West Virginian.
Yeah,
because she's just trash.
Well, see, like that's what I thought, because we're watching this, and my girlfriend was like, "Why is she talking like that?" I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "I think she is from Virginia," but then I looked. I was like, "Oh no, wait, she's from California." I was like, "So I don't know what her." It's like, I guess her character is from Virginia, but like I also feel like she just talks like that in all the movies, unless it's like Elysium where she has like 9 different accents. But that was intentional, I guess, because of Neil Blomkamp, whatever.
Well,
Anyways,
so hey, what did your did Andrea watch this with you?
She did. She's watched a couple.
Oh yeah, and what did she think of this? Had she seen it before?
She had seen it before, and I had told her that I was watching it, and she said, "Oh yeah, let me watch that one with you. I like that movie."
Yeah.
And we watched it, and she was the exact same with me. Like I think for the first 10 minutes, she was on her phone, which is pretty standard fare, and then she got pulled into it, and then she was right there with me, edge of our seat action for the whole time. So yeah, she really dug it too, which I thought was good, because I thought she watched the ones she has watched out of this whole run, a couple of them I thought were like some of the lower points where I was like, oh man, it's like I wish you had watched a better one. So
Yeah, you're starting to fear that she thinks you're just wasting your life with this Criterion shit.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like I like to try to pick out good ones for her to watch, but so she's definitely not gonna watch any of the samurai ones coming up, and I'm not gonna watch Sallow with her. So
Aw.
I'm gonna have a hard enough time watching that one by myself. So
We should make sure your roommate Scott's there with you.
God, no, that'll break him.
Yeah, that's what we're all about here, though. Is breaking Scott, the roommate. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, when I started watching this, my girlfriend Chanel, she
Yeah.
loves this movie. She
Hmm.
loves it. Like she just like always, she started hearing the music and she kind of just like put her head out. She went, "I love Clarice Starling," and then that was
Yeah.
about it. And yeah, because she actually wanted me to buy this the Blu-ray of it, because obviously the Criterion edition of this film is long out of print. And the one downer on that is the commentary track is gone and it's owned by Criterion, and they don't just license it out to MGM or whoever put this out at the time. But it is on YouTube, and so I did listen to a little bit about that.
Who does the commentary on that?
It's a few people because Anthony. It's kind of an interview though, and then they just
The
put the
cast.
interview over top of it. So it wasn't actually. I don't think it was really a commentary track like where they were
Right.
watching the movie. So it's like Hopkins, Foster, Demme, and then the FBI special agent that like was the point man that they talked, like Thomas Harris probably talked to. I think it's John Douglas. Like,
Oh, okay.
so he's
Gotcha,
like
yeah.
he's an actual like in the field like profiler type guy, and so he was like the person that they talked to for the expert for when they were making the movie.
Gotcha.
So like, have you ever read any of the Thomas Harris novels?
So I personally haven't, but I have a friend who is a huge horror buff like us,
Yep.
but she also doubles down on the horror reading more than I do even. And she always told me that they were really good, and I think the big point was that he was super like descriptive and like vivid in the way he described like the cooking aspects, like stuff like that, like kind of how Hannibal really emphasizes like the scenes where he's like cooking and like that kind of thing. So she always said like that was the big draw to those books was he was very he did a good job in describing that kind of stuff. So
Okay, because yeah, I just kind of like, I mean, after the week of Thomas Harris movies, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna finally read Red Dragon. I went to go look for a copy of it. I thought I bought used. I have
yeah.
no idea where it's gone to, so I went and bought another copy yesterday, and I'm
Hot
about
damn.
2 chapters in. And the one thing like his economy of writing, it's like it's very to the point, which I love. That's my
Awesome.
favorite type of writing. No fluff, no descriptors, just like characters monologues, characters dialogue, and that's all it is so far, and I love it.
Oh.
What really sold it for me it was like one of my friends, Mitch from he like, I think Red Dragon's like one of his all-time favorite books. And actually, I was just reading the Wikipedia entry on the Red Dragon novel, and I guess like James Ellroy, who's probably my favorite writer, he like just he loves it. He thinks it's
Right.
great, and it inspired him to write his own serial killer book, Killer on the Road, which I read several years ago, and I think I read it literally in one night, which I've never done before. And that book is also really good, and I think I've told you to read it at some point when you have a life again.
Yeah, no, after my master's, James Elroy is up on my big stack. Like I have my reading, since I double as a reading podcast here, I was trying to do a thing where it was a book a month. And so it was supposed to be my October book. And then I had nothing planned for November, but December was going to be Nosferatu. And then January, I was going to do a James Elroy. And I guess it was that one. I couldn't remember the one you were telling me to do, but
Yeah.
it was that one.
Yeah, there's a little pile of stuff you're supposed to borrow at some point in the future.
Yeah, I got lots of
Yeah.
content.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess like, yeah, let's talk about the other movies we watched kind of in preparation for Silence of the Lambs.
Sure.
So we both watched Manhunter.
Goddamn right we did.
And yeah, Manhunter. I think we both watched the Scream Factory Blu-ray that
Yeah.
just came out, and yeah, that movie is also incredible. I only like, I think on Letterboxd I grade it slightly below Silence of the Lambs, just because I think there's just like these things about it that like date it for people that I couldn't like say to people like, yeah, it's a 5-star movie. But there's these little things that don't really necessarily bother me, but I know that there'll be things that people talk about, and maybe that's like a stupid reason to like hold against a movie that potentially other people won't like this thing.
Yep.
But it's just a little bit below, even though I think they're both like equally great
Hmm.
movies.
Yeah, that is stupid. And frankly, I think you're stupid
Thank you.
because of that. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like that stuff I'm pretty I think you mentioned it before. It's like some of the score and the soundtrack and stuff like that. Which I could see like because I knew Andrea liked Silence of the Lambs, but I didn't watch Manhunter with her because I think she would also like I think she would like the story and like the movie, but like that kind of stuff I'm pretty sure would like pull her out of it a little bit. So I agree with you. It doesn't bother me, but I do
Hmm.
think
It
I do
doesn't.
think I could see
Yeah.
how other people would.
I guess it's like, does it pass the girlfriend test? Because
Yeah,
because the other
exactly.
thing is like, because yeah, Chanel, like she like, I guess like as I've been like preparing for this stuff, like she was like, yeah, I read the Thomas Harris novels in like junior high, like she
Damn.
read them and she loved them and stuff like that. So she goes way back with this stuff, but like. Whenever I watch Manhunter, she could give a crap. Like she doesn't care about it at all. Like she just doesn't watch it with me. She never like goes out of her way to watch it. Even though I'm like, no, hey Chanel, this movie's really good, but it just doesn't like interest her. And I don't
Yeah.
know why those things are. I think it's because it's also like the difference of like a William Peterson is your lead and Jodie Foster for like
Hmm.
a female viewer would just be like kind of like not something you wouldn't relate to necessarily, I guess.
He does a good job though.
Oh yeah, no, he's really good. Like
Grissom.
he's kind of like he kind of goes into like bad acting territory in every movie he's in at times, because like even in
Hmm.
like another William Peterson movie that I totally love is To Live and Die in L.A.,
Hmm.
where he just like delivers some lines. He's like, he was righteous, man. And like it just like
Okay.
you go, whoa, all right, okay,
Yeah.
all right, Bill, slow down. And
Hmm.
even in like Manhunter, there's these times where he starts like getting into shit and he's saying lines, you're like, he's acting now, like, but and it
Yeah.
feels like
Yeah.
acting. And those are like tiny little things that like, that's just William Peterson, that's how he works. But there, I think hands down Manhunter is the more beautiful of the movies, if you want to
Yep.
compare it to Silence of the Lambs. And
Hmm.
we're going to talk about Brett Ratner's Red Dragon here
Okay.
shortly.
Sure.
But yeah, so watching Manhunter again, the music is fantastic. I love the
Hmm.
score. Like I was downloading some of the tracks off of YouTube
Right.
and just listening to those, like the one like Prime Movers and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
Shriek Back and stuff. And it's just like, oh, this is so great. Like as far as like if you want to talk about like just great examples of Michael Mann's filmmaking, like it's all there. Like his cinematography,
Hmm.
his like use of color and times of day in his movies, like the
Right.
opening shots of like just oh, it's William Peterson, I'm blanking out on what's his name,
Dennis Farina.
Dennis Farina, and
Yeah.
them just sitting on the beach and like those like them like, oh, it's just like gorgeous. Like it's just like I'm
Yeah.
just like marvel at like how good looking this movie is. And then like it cuts back to Dennis Farina and the actress that plays William
The wife.
Peterson's
Yeah.
wife, the wife, and like that's beautiful. And it's just like, holy
Hmm.
crap, this movie just keeps getting better, and like every shot is just like pristine, and like it's always looked great, but now it looks even better on Blu-ray.
Hmm.
And the music is good; it keeps it going.
Yep.
I think the only misstep for like the music is probably the end credits music, like right at the end, the
Yeah.
I can feel your heartbeat,
It's
heartbeat.
yeah. It's really out of place.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't that Phil Collins era, and I'm
Mhm.
like, ugh. And it's
Yeah.
right at the end. And also, like, okay, my criticism of Manhunter is I don't really like the ending of it that much, and that's like not because I've read
Mhm.
Red Dragon, because I haven't, and I didn't even actually know how Red Dragon actually ended
Yep.
until I watched the Brett Ratner version, which I realized was actually closer to the book in
Mhm.
some ways. But like it's so abrupt, like just the whole like raid on the house and him
Yeah.
like, and like I love the in the God of Davida run slow motion,
Oh
which
yeah.
the first time I saw that movie, because I had like I used to have the old Anchor Bay DVD 2-pack of it with the dossier stuff in it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like I remember like that scene taking forever. Like I thought like the slow
Mhm.
motion I thought was like almost like a minute of him just running in slow motion, like. And watching it now, it's like no, it's like so fast. It's like almost over, so too
I,
quick.
I was gonna say, so that's like my favorite part of Manhunter is the Inagata Davida
Yeah.
part, and like when I was watching it again, because this was the second time I watched Manhunter, the whole time I was like, man, I just wish this scene was like 10 minutes long and just like solid, just motionless shots of Tom Noonan just with the strobe
Mm.
lights holding that shotgun, just with the
Yeah.
song playing. I'd fucking love that. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, and then like because it seems like because he busts through the window, he gets messed up immediately,
Yeah,
and then
he
the other
just
cops
grabs
come.
him.
But then there's like the weird jump cuts,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like
no,
it's kind of like what the fuck? Like it's like unlike the rest of the whole movie, and then it's like it's so like oh it's over and it's done and that's the end of the movie, and then you can feel my heartbeat, heartbeat,
yeah.
and it's just like oh that's the end of the movie I guess, and it's like okay that's it. My favorite scene of that entire movie and like probably one of my all-time favorite scenes in movies is Will Graham breaking down how the Tooth Fairy knows what to do when he's in the people's houses, and it's like
Right.
the thought process with Dennis Farina talking, and then like what it is, it's Michael Rubino score. It's a piece called Graham's Theme starts playing, and it starts off low, and it starts like crescendo, it starts building, and like it's him like working out how he did it, and it's so good. Every time I watch that goddamn scene, I'm always like, how does he figure it out? Like, how does he piece it together? And now I'm like, oh yeah. And then you see him like figuring it out, and so you never see that in movies ever. Like you never see a guy really piece things
Yeah.
together, or it's very rare. The only other place I can think of like where you actually get to really see a character like piece together rather than just like this is what it is it's the scene in Jackie Brown with Samuel L. Jackson when he's sitting in the van with Robert De Niro and he's trying to figure out what went wrong and where the money is. And there's a scene where it's just him silently sitting with a gun to his head and he's thinking. And like you really get the sense of like, yeah, no, he actually is thinking. Like the actor has completely understood his role and he's doing it. And it's rare because like most movies don't have time to let scenes like that breathe. And so in Manhunter, like that scene is like that's like my all-time favorite scene in that movie, and like it's one of my all favorite movie scenes. Yeah, Manhunter is super super good. And so I guess to stick with these Thomas Harris movie viewings, I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch Red Dragon from Brett Ratner from 2002 because when that movie came out, Brett Ratner did an interview and he complained about how Manhunter was dated. The movie, no one saw it because, yeah,
Fuck off.
no one saw it and it didn't make any money and we better do it. And like Brian, I don't know if he said it, but like people always said, Brian Cox, who's this loser? Like, cause no, people don't, I don't think people realized it was Brian Cox cause he's like kind of unrecognizable cause he's not fat.
Yeah.
As people have grown to be aware of Brian Cox and they're going, oh, it's just, oh, it's stupid. It's 80s, blah, blah, blah. I think the only thing that like probably hasn't aged well Manhunter for me is the opening credit title, that green. It's like, cause it looks like a horror movie. It's like Reanimator green and it's glowing. And it's like, that's strange.
It's pretty cool though.
It's cool, but
Yeah.
it's like, it hasn't, but it's like very dating. Like, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's not, it's not timeless, we'll say.
Yeah, I'll just say something quick on Manhunter before you jump there.
Okay.
I understand people don't like Brian Cox either, and I think it's partially just because of Anthony Hopkins, because like that's what people would recognize as Hannibal Lecter. Like I can guarantee most people had only seen Anthony Hopkins and not Brian Cox, and then when you hear someone else was Hannibal, it's like oh. Like before Mads Mikkelsen came along, and then they're like, "Oh, it's okay that other people do it. Sometimes they do it better." But I thought Brian Cox was awesome in that.
Yeah.
And I got to say, when you were talking earlier about Dennis Farina, I think he is fucking wicked in that movie. He's my favorite Jack Crawford.
Really?
Like more than yeah. I think he's the best. Like I think what's his face? Scott Glenn is like maybe the most manipulative Crawford, and
Right.
Lawrence Fishburne is really good too. And like like the thing too is like Lawrence Fishburne definitely has the most exposure, like because that's a televised show. You see him a lot more, so like I feel like
Right.
it's easy to like grow attached to him more because you get so much more of it. And that's the same with like Hugh Dancy's Will Graham or like Mads Mikkelsen, is like you get to see these characters develop, so it's easier to go to them. But rewatching Manhunter again, I was like, man, Dennis Farina is so fucking good in this movie. Plus, he's just awesome. So
Well, I mean, I guess like my counterpoint to that is like I feel like Dennis Farina just basically plays Dennis Farina. Like
Yeah.
he's one of those, what do you call it, character actors. But he's just
Yeah.
he's Dennis Farina. And like Michael Mann loves Dennis Farina.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
he throws him and stuff, and he's like, yeah, no, he's a cop. Like he totally is. Like he's more of a cop than I think the Crawford character should be, because I don't think of Crawford as a cop with a mustache. I think of him as like, you know, he's like a FBI bureaucrat agent who's like into like these like darker aspects, I guess, of like man, and like he's like done his reading and stuff like that. I guess like one of the little bits I was reading too is I guess like Scott Glenn, for his research for the role, he like actually went to like the behavioral unit,
That's
and like
cool.
and he watched like he also listened to some like audio tapes of like killers describing how they murdered like victims, and he just like
Oh,
broke down and cried. Like he was just like so, and then he became in favor of the death penalty.
oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, so
Okay,
there's that.
cool.
But yeah, so okay, Red Dragon.
Uh huh.
I really had made a point of avoiding that movie because Brett Ratner's terrible as a director. I'd only really been exposed to his movies via Rush Hour,
Yeah.
and I watched like on that DVD there was a special feature of like a short film he made that he just included to show how terrible it was. But it seems like no, this is just seems like it's exactly what you want to do, Brett
Hmm.
Ratner. And like so I haven't really seen too much of his movies, but his comments about Manhunter just like pissed me off. I'm like, I ain't never seen your movie, buddy.
Yeah.
But now it seemed to be like if I was ever going to watch it, I guess I should watch it now. So
Uh huh.
so started watching it, and
Hmm.
the whole opening scene, you get the background of Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter's first like, encounter, or the end of their encounter, which
Hmm.
I guess is like the end of season 2 of the Hannibal TV show.
Right.
It's like, but of course, like I think the description is like I think in the books, Will Graham's like stomach gets cut open with a linoleum knife. Like a, and I don't.
Okay.
There's like no attention to that at all. He just gets
Yeah.
stabbed in the guts by Anthony Hopkins at the end of it. But they set up the whole thing of like Hannibal Lecter basically killing a guy because he was out of tune.
Hmm.
Like he was in the band and he's like, and it just it offended his tastes, which is like you don't get that at all really in the movies, but
Yeah.
you definitely get that in the Hannibal TV show. And so they
Uh
really
huh.
hone in on that, and the whole preparation of the meals and having people
Yep.
over and feeding them, all that stuff is like now is like represented in the TV show really well. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess they drew on that from this movie. Maybe I guess
Hmm.
it's like something to work on. And then you get the scene on the beach, the layout, and it's like again, it's a lot closer to the book that I've
Hmm.
started reading now. And so then you get Edward Norton doing the Will Graham thing, but he's kind of like he's not doesn't do too much. He's Ed
Okay.
Norton. I've always found Ed Norton kind of like a pretty two-dimensional actor.
I like Ed Norton.
There's nothing like I mean I guess like Fight Club, American History X
Yeah.
are the things that
Hmm.
spring to mind, and then there's like that movie Primal Fear. I think that he's
You're,
also in.
you're forgetting the Hulk.
What I haven't seen the Incredible Hulk movie.
I like that movie, and I think he's the best Bruce Banner.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I like Edward Norton.
Yeah. So I mean, he's fine, but like he's not like
Sure.
but I mean, all my problems actually in that movie boil down to the lack of ambition of
Uh,
Brett Ratner to make like a visually interesting movie.
hmm.
And that seems to be like one thing I've become aware, like finding screen captures for stuff on Instagram is like I usually watch a movie and go, oh, that's nice, and I start posting about it. But like I'll watch a movie sometimes and be like, oh, there's really nothing worth posting about in this movie. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, that's like a mark against it. Cause it's just like, there's nothing really happening. It's like very like meat and potatoes, like direction,
Right.
which is fine. I mean, not everything has to like be like beautiful compositing and stuff like that. But the movie's like, I think about that movie that I watched now like a couple days ago, and I don't remember anything about it other than things that just start bothering me. Like
Right.
Danny Elfman does the score, and he brings absolutely nothing to the table at all. Like it's just like
Hmm.
completely unnoteworthy. And like that's the thing with like Manhunter and Silence of the Lambs is they both have memorable scores and really great like use of music. Both of them
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
And like in Red Dragon, none of that. Because apparently
Hmm.
that dates your movie.
Well, I think it's
Heaven
just 'cause,
forbid.
as you said, Brett Ratner's just unimaginative. He
Yeah.
just he's got no yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
He's
Yeah, you're right.
he's a Brett Ratner.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that they recast John Heald as Chilton again and Frankie Faison as Barney. So they reprised their roles. But then like when the payoff to all that is at the end of the movie, you get Chilton telling Hannibal Lecter that there's a woman here to see him, and he asks, "Oh, what's her name?" And then it cuts away, and it's just like, oh. It's like
Yeah.
now we're supposed to go put in our Silence of the Lambs movie and then go, hey, why does Hannibal Lecter look like 10 years younger?
Yeah, and
Because
plus
he
the other.
obviously is like way like
Mhm,
Anthony Hopkins is in way rougher shape than he was
mhm,
in 1991 and 2002. Like he
yeah,
just looks like he's heavier.
old.
Yeah, because like all
He's
like
just
that.
super
Oh,
old.
this is the other thing in the flashback with him, like in 1980, because that's where it picks up with him at like the
Yeah.
recital hall and stuff. He's got a ponytail.
Oh, gross.
Oh yeah, it's like of course he does because that means you're young because you have a
Mhm,
ponytail. And so also the other thing with Red Dragon is it's supposed to be set in like 1988. Like it's supposed to be set in the same era,
yeah.
but because it says like 1980 and then when they do the jump ahead, it's like several years.
Mhm.
And I guess it's like because it's supposed to be before 1991 Silence of the Lambs, I guess. But yeah, like nothing about this movie feels particularly 80s, which I mean, it doesn't like it feels like it could be at any period of time, and nothing about it needed to be that. Which is just like that would be a nice attention to detail to have, I guess, if you're going to make a point of dating your movie.
Yeah, but he's lazy.
He's lazy. Yeah, he doesn't give a
Yeah.
shit about stuff
So
like that.
like that's the other thing too. Like I have seen that movie, but it was probably like around the time it actually came out. I
Hmm.
think I saw it. But I was just thinking like that ending is so bad because like between Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs, it's supposed to be like 5 or 6 years that anyone goes because like in Silence of the Lambs, Crawford makes a point of saying he's like nobody's like interacted with Hannibal Lecter for like 6 years.
Yeah,
So it's like the fact that it's like is as soon as Red Dragon is done, that's when Silence of the Lambs starts. That's dumb.
that's kind of what they're
Yeah.
suggesting.
So
Yeah.
that again, that's lazy.
Well, so that's like with that movie, like what the thing they were going with is like because they Manhunter doesn't really act really well as a like a precursor to Silence of the Lambs. So
Yeah.
they got the same screenwriter on from Silence of the Lambs, Ted Talley, to do the script for Red Dragon, and he
Okay.
basically just does like a an adaptation of the novel that's closer to it than Manhunter is. It is closer. It's got like scenes that when I was watching Red Dragon, I'm like, what's this? And then I'm like, oh, that is in the book. And then
Hmm.
like, but I mean, they even still like at the end of the movie, they still like don't even dare land it because like, this is spoilers for me who's reading the book, but I guess like, Dollarhide fakes his death, and in this like contrived way, and then he just shows up at Will Graham's house. And
Hmm.
he like cuts his face open, like he disfigures him horribly. But in the
Yeah.
movie, they decide, oh, we can't disfigure Ed Norton, even though it's the end of the movie, and after this point, we don't even really see him again. No, he just gets
Yeah.
like cut across the chest, but
Hmm.
not across the face. And because the whole thing is like he's now disfigured, and he's going to
Yeah.
find like peace and like in his own life now. But
Yeah.
in the movie, it's like no, he just gets across the chest. He's fine, folks.
They don't do that in the TV show either. Like
Yeah.
because you've seen all of the show, right?
You know, I only watched about the first 4 episodes of season 3. I
Okay.
never actually finished it when it got into the Red Dragon stuff with Dollarhide and stuff.
Okay. Well, yeah, I won't spoil it either. Like, I think that's close too, but he doesn't get his face cut up either. It's something else.
Well,
So
that kind of goes back to like well on so on the Game of Thrones TV show
yeah.
with Tyrion, he's supposed to be like really fucked up after the Blackwater battle.
Well,
Like
he has
'cause
no nose.
well, yeah, he gets his face like cleaved in half with an axe, but he
Yeah.
lives, but he's like really disfigured and messed up. And but obviously, oh, it's a TV show, and we gotta like make sure people don't like feel sick watching
Mhm.
this disfigured man on a week to week basis. And so he just looks dashing still
Mhm.
because Peter Dinklage is a handsome little man, and
Exactly.
he looks just fine. And it's like he's got a nice little dueling scar, but not like he's supposed to be like monstrous in that world.
Yeah.
But I mean, whatever. It's TV, I guess, or like
Well,
it's Hollywood, but I don't
because
know.
people love him too. Like, they can't disfigure him because then people be like, "Oh, I don't like this show anymore."
Yeah, well, I guess they kill off enough people, so I mean, people feel bad about that enough as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, Red Dragon. So I remember I thought Ray Fiennes was pretty good, but
Um,
then again, his real name is Ralph, so I don't know what that's all about.
Ralph Fiennes, yeah, one of the letterbox reviews I saw talked about how scary he is and like how intense and stuff.
Eh.
And I was like, not really. Like nothing about it struck me as like
Mhm.
jumping out. I guess like in the Red Dragon movie, they kind of like try to hone in on the whole thing that like I guess Thomas Harris was getting at with his like with both books is about like the terrible one of the repercussions of child abuse, I guess, because it's
Yeah.
like, because it's more in the book, I guess, and in the movie it's like you get like you don't get a flashback, but you get him you get like Dollarhide doing the workout,
Yeah.
and like you get like him imagining the voices of his grandmother being like horrifically brutal to him and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like in Silence of the Lambs, I guess, is like one of the things that Demme wishes he had done more of, was that like I guess like Hannibal Lecter is a victim of child abuse, and James Gum is a victim of child abuse, and like that's like an undercurrent in these things. Like none of these men are like born that way. They were arrived at through like rearing, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's these monsters. So I don't know. That's like, I don't need that in the movie either. It doesn't hurt it.
Well, that's actually, so that's again the TV show that actually shows that really well. Because like, so season 3 of Hannibal, I don't think you actually get to the Red Dragon story until the last 5 episodes
Yes.
of season 3. Because like the whole first half is like them in Europe.
Yeah, the European chase stuff, which has totally killed the show for me.
Yeah.
I hated that stuff.
If I could, I'd say for you to just jump to where they go back and to the Red Dragon and finish. Because actually the guy who plays Francis Dollarhide in that, Richard Armitage, he was in like the Hobbit movies. He does a really good job. There's a lot of workout scenes with hot abs.
Whoa.
And they really kind of go into like his story, like the childhood aspects and like what Red Dragon actually means. Like there's a whole episode that I think is just Richard Armitage like exploring like what it means to be Red Dragon, and then him eating the book and stuff like that. Like
yes, okay,
so,
yeah, no, that was like that scene in the Red Dragon Ratner movie. It's just like I was like, what the fuck? Like him like going to like the Brooklyn Museum and eating the print. I was like, what? And I looked up, I'm like, oh, that actually happens in the book. Well, that's kind of neat. But like I totally understand why Michael Mann wouldn't have had that in the Manhunter movie. It's just like another contrivance of like, no, now he has like the ability to travel all the way to Brooklyn to go see this print in the middle of like the fact that he's like ramping up to eat more people or like to kill another victim or whatever. Like I think in the movie it's fine, like because Manhunter works as its own thing. It doesn't work as far as like in the Thomas Harris mythos, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
It's its own movie as this like really slick 80s dredge cool movie. It's like, yeah, it's a perfect self-contained thing. As a Thomas Harris thing, maybe not. I mean, it's inspired by it or whatever.
Right.
Whatever you want to call them that.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, yeah, the other thing I'll mention too is like when I was looking up Manhunter, is like, oh yeah, so like the Dino De Laurentiis weird like film rights thing, as far as like why the Hannibal TV show couldn't have Clarice Starling, is because these two different studios own it, but like Hannibal Lecter can bounce between them all. But I guess like Dino De Laurentiis, he gave the rights of Hannibal Lecter away for free to Silence of the Lambs because Manhunter did so badly and he didn't care at the time.
Okay.
But now he gets those rights, and now he can do whatever he wants with it, including, hey, Thomas Harris, you should keep writing books like Hannibal Rising, which I have not watched, have no plan on watching it. And there's also the issue of Ridley Scott's Hannibal, which I haven't watched since it came out on DVD way back when, and I still don't want to watch that movie again.
I contemplated that too, because I have seen Hannibal, but I haven't seen Hannibal Rising. And like this week, I was like, I could watch that for the show, but then again, it's like I have such a little time in the next like 2 weeks. It's like I don't think I'll being able to watch the next or the 3 movies for the next episode is going to be a challenge enough. I can't fill in with bad movies like Hannibal and Hannibal Rising.
Yeah, I would have loved to turn this right into like all like Thomas Harris all the time, but I mean, I don't have enough time to finish reading all his books and watching all these novel adaptations and then live my life. Sorry, folks. I wish I really wanted to in some ways.
Audiobook.
Yeah. So I also. I was reading about Thomas Harris, and I guess he hasn't done an interview since 1976.
Whoa, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, like, I mean, obviously people like associate with him and talk with him and stuff like that, but he doesn't do interviews.
He didn't get interviewed like when Silence of the Lambs came out?
No, he wouldn't give them. He wouldn't give interviews. He didn't see any point to it. He's like,
is he like a weirdo, or
no,
is he?
like, he's apparently totally normal. Like, he's a normal guy, just like he's an author who's like, well, I read my books if you want to like talk to me, I guess. And like he's married and like he's a Southern guy, and he just kind of is off in his own world writing Hannibal books. Because like his first book is Black Sunday, which I did acquire a copy of, and I again didn't have time to watch it because it's like football blimp terrorist movie or something like that, and it's got what's his name?
Sideshow Bob.
Sideshow Bob's in it. That's who. I wish I could have watched it too, but I think it's supposed to be.
Matter.
It's a 70s story. I know it's a neither here nor there type of thing. But what else could we say about this here deal? Oh, some other fun things about Silence of the Lambs, the novel. Roald Dahl greatly enjoyed the novel.
That's weird.
David
Okay.
Foster Wallace.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used the book as part of his curriculum while teaching college before he died. And he also included Red Dragon on his list of 10 favorite novels with Silence of the Lambs. So he was a big fan. Everyone seems to like that old T. Harris.
Yeah, but I can't trust David Foster Wallace.
Come on, haven't you tried reading Infinite Jest?
Yeah, I read the first page, and that's all I could get through. And I think anyone who says they've read that book is a liar, and anyone who says that's like their favorite book is completely full of shit.
Don't you want to learn more about tennis school?
Fuck it, no. Why would anybody? I don't get it, man. I read the first page like 6 times on like separate occasions. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll give it a try, and I was just like, no, this ain't for me. I can't do it.
Yeah, at my comic store job, there was this like mom, this like hot mom with her like little kid that like played Magic,
Oh.
and like she was like hanging around and like reading Infinite Jest, and I'm like, what the hell? And like, I mean, it seemed like, and she was coming in like on a weekly basis, and like she'd be sitting in the back with like all these like 18 to 25-year-old dudes, and like her like sons playing with them, and she's just sitting around playing Infinite Jest, and I think she was like flirting with one of the other like parents of like one of the other kids that's there.
Gross.
And I'm like, oh, you guys don't want to talk about Infinite Jest, right? And it's like, I don't know if she ever finished it, 'cause she didn't seem to be getting through it very fast, because that bookmark wasn't moving very quickly.
Because it's a bad book.
Yeah, I think she works at a liquor store over at Costco,
Which one?
the only one in
The
town.
Costco liquor?
Yeah,
I'm a frequent there.
well, I think she works there.
Well,
So
she
you-
probably
you-
knows me as a dirtbag.
You can go accost her about David Foster Wallace.
I will. I'll go tell her she's full of shit, and then I'll buy my weekly allotment of booze, and she'll just write me off as a drunk like I am.
Yeah,
So, all right,
enough of that.
enough of that.
So, I found some controversy on the Wikipedia page about Silence of the Lambs, the
Oh.
film, about its depictions of transsexuals. Yes. So I'll just read it here. Upon its release, The Silence of the Lambs was criticized by members of the LGBT community for its portrayal of Buffalo Bill as bisexual and transsexual. In response to the critiques, Demme replied that Buffalo Bill wasn't a gay character. He was a tormented man who hated himself and wished he was a woman, because that would have made him as far away from himself as he possibly could be. Demme added that he came to realize that there was a tremendous absence of positive gay characters in movies.
But don't they address that in the movie itself? Like that's
It's
the whole
kind of,
point.
it's a real missable line, and I could definitely see like where people like kind of like, if you think about when you were a kid, like how
Yeah.
many like men dressing as women movies had you watched where like the person wasn't also a serial killer? Like I
This
just
is
mentioned,
Doubtfire.
there you go. That was all an elaborate ploy.
Yeah.
But it's like most of the times, like a movie like Dressed to Kill, it's like, oh, Michael Caine, he dresses as a woman and he's a killer. Like that's a real like thing that was like going around. Like that's like
Okay.
it's in comics to this day. Like there was like that Batgirl comic that came out like a couple years ago where it's
Yeah.
like another like trans serial killer thing. It's like, and it's like, well, what's the reason for that? And it's like, oh, I guess like, I mean, Silence of the Lambs came out after Dressed to Kill, so maybe Brian De Palma's to blame. But I don't know. Like it's just like it goes back further, because there was the one movie Private Parts, which is and it's like, again, it's like another like trans killer. It's like this idea that, well, if you're trans, you're probably also a serial killer, and that was like a real thing in movies for years and years. Or you're supposed to be made fun of, and it sucks. But
Well, yeah, I understand like why people would take issue with that, but I thought they did a good like. I noticed when the movie was on, they're like because like there's a whole point where Clarice is like he wants to be transgendered or something like that, and like Hannibal's like no, because like they talk about how they're like typically like bisexual and like transgender people aren't violent and don't have violent tendencies, and like they make a point of it being like, well, he's not actually transgendered, he's just mad about it. It's like, so go look at all the places that do like sexual reassignment surgeries, and I'm sure he was like applied but denied, and he was.
Well, yeah, there's a there's a deleted scene where it's like Crawford is talking to like a surgeon at John Hopkins, and he's accusing it of like, this is stereotyping or something like that, and it's like addressed once again. It's like, no, that he thinks he's transgender, or but he's not. He's like out of his mind, and he's dangerous. Like it's an excuse basically.
Exactly.
To kill. Yeah. The other little bit from the Wikipedia page is, in a 1992 interview with Playboy magazine, notable feminist and women's rights advocate Betty Friedan stated,
Oh.
"I thought it was absolutely outrageous that The Silence of the Lambs won 4, it's actually 5, Oscars. I'm not saying that the movie shouldn't have been shown. I'm not denying the movie was an artistic triumph, but it was about the evisceration, the skinning alive of women. That is what I find offensive."
Oh, controversial take. I find it offensive to skin people.
Yeah.
I know that's not what most people think, but I have to take a stand on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, so, I mean, it's not Gone with the Wind. It's not
Yeah.
Out of Africa. It's not Ordinary People. It's kind of like why Silence of the Lambs is like this unusual movie that, yeah, it's like it was that damn popular and that like big of a movie that it actually won Best Picture. And it just happens to have, a woman's skin suit
Unbelievable.
that we get one shot of only.
Yeah, it's a good shot too.
Yeah. So any other thoughts about the Harris universe, about Silence of the Lambs?
No, I think it's cool. I dig it. That's about it.
Yeah, it is a all-time classic, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to my favorite part of the show. Who hates this movie?
Oh, God.
Who hates this fucking movie? Gene Siskel. He didn't see what the fuss was all about. He dismissed the movie as a star-studded freak show and writing that The Silence of the Lambs was a case of much ado about nothing.
Oh God, he seems like a prude.
Yeah.
If he called it a freak show.
Well, he's up there like, yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer and Sean Connery is people were like, ooh.
It's icky.
Yeah. So we have Josiah Morgan, who I'm pretty sure I might have even talked about before on this show.
Oh, God.
He gave this half a star.
Sure.
The career-defining Anthony Hopkins performance turns out to be just as fatuous as most of the shots, and just as inoffensive as the screenplay, which is exactly the thing that frustrates me the most. If a film intends to be offensive and manages to offend me, then it's done something right. But when something wants to disturb, create tension, or offend and fails, examples, Sicario, Throw Away Your Books, Rally in the Streets, Stoker, that's a surefire way into the annals of what I class as the weakest films I've seen.
What?
Yeah.
What does he mean by like
this movie set out to offend and it failed to offend him, ergo it sucks.
But like I don't understand either. Like so he says he only likes movies that offend him?
Yep.
What is like I don't get it. Like
Well, shut up. That's why. Shut up.
Is he a masochist?
Fire Lord Azulus gives this 1 star. Okay, so if you wanted a gross misinterpretation of Starling's character, then this is the film for you. Basically, the only good things about this were the wardrobe and the paralleling of the break-ins. Like, that was really well done. But everything else was terrible. All the Clarice plus Lecter scenes sucked. Sucked. You don't see, like, any Starling's fire? Like, what was that about anyway? How shaky she is while holding her gun? She was top of her class? The best shot in the Academy? Realistic? Fucking no. Why does she cry all the time? That's not true to her character at all. Why do women always have to cry in films? What douchebag is responsible for this? I can't believe it won so many awards, to be honest. Like, what the hell is that about?
That's really dumb. Like I think it's pretty obvious that like ability in like testing scenarios and then real life are very different. Like go talk to like a cop who's actually fired his weapon like in real life and ask him if it was the same as a shooting range.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's obviously come out of school, and it's also in the situation where it's like, yeah, she's now found herself in the realm of the serial killer. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this has just happened. You would be nervous as hell because you're like, oh, do I just drop this guy now? Or like, yeah, there's like obvious these things that it's like, oh, she's a cold, calculated killer. It's like, no,
she is.
No one is. And it's like, that's not the character at all.
Like that's the whole point of like when she cries when she leaves the facility, like there's a flashback of her with her dad. Like it's the point is showing that like she's like she's a human. Like she has like emotions about things. Like she has memories of stuff, and like you get upset. Like what does he mean by the only good thing is the wardrobe? Like
the clothes.
Yeah, like other than like Chilton's garish scarf, I couldn't even like I don't understand. Like there's not a single piece of clothing that's like remembering to me.
Well, yeah, I'd say that like the Jodie Foster's clothes, like the Clarice Starling, like the brown kind of like suit, like the unassuming kind of like she's trying to cover up the fact that she's like female, or like she's like
Yeah.
wearing a very like like I'm not attractive. Don't look at me like I'm just a sex object. But even
Yeah.
then, even when she does,
Yeah, okay.
which always reminds me, there's like the one great Alan Moore quote about like he's glad if he was a woman, he would walk around in like 6 sweaters and carry around a pair of scissors in his purse.
Yeah.
Because men are horrible. The world of men is horrible.
Yeah, that's true.
Next review here, 1 star by Blue God, Hollywood crap.
Is that it?
That's it. And then
all right.
Anthony Nesbitt gives it 2.5 stars. Oh, it's horribly overrated, not least compared to Manhunter. I guess that means Manhunter's really good. Never a fan of Howard Shore either. Directed by someone who really loves cliches, Jonathan Demme. Come on down. One of the thorough lines I saw amongst a lot of the like negative reviews on this were like, it's no Manhunter. People should just watch Manhunter instead.
I think that's really unfair to say that because, like, as we've discussed, we both really like Manhunter.
Yeah,
and
I think
we really like this too. Like, there's no reason you can't like both.
Yeah, I mean, I think Silence of the Lambs is like a movie I could easily recommend to like everybody. Manhunter, I think is like an all-time great movie that like I wish I could recommend it to everybody, but it seems like people like are more likely against it for some reason. Unless you're like real movie people love this. Movie people love Manhunter. That's one thing. Internet movie people, they love Manhunter. That's their pick. And rightfully, and it's a great movie. Silence of the Lambs is also a great movie.
Yeah.
I would say that it's actually my favorite movie so far that we've watched.
Ooh, hot take.
Yeah. It's probably a mix of nostalgia. And like, I think this movie is super good. There's so much I enjoy about it. I
got you.
I love it.
I got you.
It's wicked. People listening, if you haven't watched it already, probably watch it. Maybe there'll be something people see that I don't, or I just dismiss because it's great. I don't care.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, that all being said, that's another one in the can. After the break, we'll do some wrap up and we'll talk about what we're talking about next.